That's just. It's just going to be.
I'm still breathing from going up the mountain.
That's just going to be my audio over the whole thing. So that's why my breath was coming like the whole time.
I feel like I should know Seth's breathing because he was like very labored.
You know when to like take a break.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. We went on an epic adventure. I feel like we just spent a month together.
Oh my gosh.
We did.
I loved every minute.
Changing camps definitely made like the week seem like a month.
Oh, dude, it did.
Yeah.
So, Bearded Butcher guys came out. We went on an elk hunt. Mm-hmm. This whole thing, so I'm going to set the stage a little bit. I'm going to set the stage, and then we're going to go back and talk about how this came to be. But for this elk hunt, they came out, and day one, land at the airport. I pick them up. They have no idea. They're definitely excited.
Brand new gear.
Yeah, brand new gear. Just right off the boat.
Tore the tags
fresh off the boat.
Stone Glacier, First Light, everything brand new.
Yeah, brand spanking new. I'm like, rub that in the dirt. You look funny. But we went straight to the trailhead. My buddy Mark Livesay brought his llamas. And so you guys, not only are you going on an elk hunt, you're going on a llama pack trip.
Full-blown experience.
And we get to the trailhead pretty late. You could almost call it a gong show. It was like sheer ice getting everything ready. We take
Mark
off.
fell within like 3 minutes.
Don't lie, you fell too.
Yeah.
Well, I was like 6 minutes in.
Okay.
Oh,
totally just
way better.
So we were trying to get 6 miles in. This was a 6 mile trip, and by the time everything came about, I'm like, we're not making it. We're not going to make
30
it.
seconds into it, Cody looks back and he says, "Scott, you look nervous." And I was like, yeah, I'm a little bit scared of the pace that you're setting, because you take those
you had a
first
look in your eye. It looked like you were kidding.
You take those first steps and you breathe, and the air comes in, but you don't get the results that you want from it. That's the problem going from 1,000 feet of elevation to 6,000 or wherever we were starting out at. But it's just like. It's the you're taking in the full draw, but the results are not coming.
Well,
Ohio Flatlanders.
Yeah.
To the mountains.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And mind you, there was a fair bit more snow than Mark and I had anticipated. Mark and I decided on the spot, we're like, this is good. It's doable, like whatever. And we get there and it's like, it's a little bit of snow. So we take off up this trail and it's like, what, a foot of snow?
I'd say
probably.
Yeah.
But
At
horses
least.
had broke it already, so like but I feel like that made it a little bit more difficult. Long story short is we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it to where I thought. Mark and I are trying to like on the fly make up new plans. There's like a meadow, maybe we could camp there. It's now like approaching dark. We're almost 3 miles from the truck, 3 miles from where we should be, and Mark and I are like, this is it. This is where we're camping. And we're on the side of a mountain on a trail that's like barely wide enough. What goes through your guys' head?
Well, I was just like, oh, okay. I hope the sleeping bag. So
It's like, this is completely normal to these guys.
Right.
So I'm just
like,
going to go with it.
The first thought through my head was, I hope this sleeping bag's legit because I'm going to be on a bed of snow. and I'm like, but I'm like, I trust these guys. I mean, And they were like, should we get the stove out? No, we're not going to get the stove out.
It's not cold enough for a stove.
Can we all fit in this tent? Yeah, we can all fit in this tent. I'm like, okay, so somebody build a fire. I'm like, oh, okay. And then, I'm like, offering, do I need help with the llamas, whatever? So we start feeding llamas. And then, are we allowed to talk about the llamas? What happened?
Should we bring up the llamas?
Mark's not here to defend himself.
Okay.
So
let's just talk about the llamas. So I was helping Mark feed the llamas, and it was going through my head. I was like, okay, so the llamas were spiked out along the trail on either side of the camp. And I was like, I know I fed 5 llamas on this side. And I thought I only fed 4 on this side. So that's 9 llamas. We're supposed to have 10 llamas. So somebody's like, where are the black panniers? I never got that right.
I don't think there's any T in there.
Okay.
Panniers.
Where are the black panniers? I'm like, okay. Well, those had Spencer and I's stuff in them. I'm like, okay, that's kind of bad, including sleeping bag.
You're like, these guys know what they're doing.
I'm getting a little bit worried at this point because
let's introduce Spencer real quick.
Spencer, our camera guy,
our nephew.
Hello.
Yeah, so I was like, that worries me a little bit because we're on snow in my sleeping bag. So it was like kind of up and down the line, and then it was like, we got a loose llama. And it was like, there's no way, because that was like supposed to be in Cody's train, and like that was up ahead. How did a llama make it back through everybody without like a random llama? So like Cody's down the hill, calling llama, shaking the pellet.
We started looking at videos and photos on our phones, counting llamas.
So it became apparent that llama was still back at the trailer.
Well, we didn't know that, but it's like how did a llama get loose? And I start walking around and I'm like, maybe there's a slight chance. Maybe we left it tied to the trailer because it was kind of chaos when we left.
It was. You have that many people, and
it was like we're trying to get going.
A bunch of greenhorns and all of our brand new crap.
We basically home aloned it.
We did.
Yeah. We home aloned it.
It was. So it became apparent that the llama was back at the trailer. So.
No, go ahead.
Cody's like.
Is there a dog barking?
Yes.
I heard dog barking.
I was like, where's a dog barking? Anyway.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Cody's like, I'll go get the llama. We're like, do we need to go? Like, I'm what's running through my head is like, I'm not walking back to the trailer and then back here again. I'll die. Well, Cody's like, I'll go get the llama. He grabs some food or whatever. I'm like, okay, I guess this is normal. And then, and so Mark starts making our meals. Well, in the meantime, Spencer's like, he's looking kind of peaked or whatever, and he's like, I got to sit down.
I'm cold.
So, yeah.
I'm chilly.
I was freezing.
So we get a chair out or whatever.
It wasn't that cold. It wasn't that cold out. So
that's the one thing that should be stated. Even though we had snow, the temperatures were very mild.
Mid to upper 30s.
Yeah.
So he sits down by the fire. Mark starts making some meals. And we're all kind of hanging out there, and all of a sudden Spencer gets sick. And he's over ralphing beside the trail.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, this is not good. So Mark knows what to do. He's like, he's got altitude sickness or he's dehydrated, combination of both, whatever, all these changes. So he's helping Spencer. He's like, Spencer, why don't you crawl in your sleeping bag? Spencer's like, it's on the llama back in the trailer.
All of my sleeping stuff is on the llama.
Yeah, all of it. So Mark, he knew what to do.
At any point were you worried?
I was worried at that point because I was like, it's so early in the trip that like if and Spencer, like I'm like, how you when you're going through that, like when your stomach's upside down, you can just feel like I can't do this.
Yeah.
This is over. I'm going back.
You can hit the red button at that point.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
And I'm like, man, if he does that, like what are the choices? Like? Yeah, exactly. Like we get back to
the hunt's
trailer.
over.
Do we fly him out? What do we do? Like then we're not getting any filming done or whatever. So I'm like, obviously I'm just like saying a prayer for Spencer, like he and like I'm like the whole Mark is helping him out or whatever. But Mark's like, no, eat this, whatever. And he's like, he just threw up, so he eats some, and then he throws up again. So it's like, okay,
no, I didn't even eat anything. I was just drinking water, and I puked all the water up.
Oh, okay. So then I'm like, yeah. This is going from yellow to red, and then Mark kindly gets a bed set up for Spencer in the tent, and Spencer crawls in there, and it was kind of nice because like no offense Spencer, but like once he was like out of sight out of mind, it was like okay
we were able to eat our
food.
It was
really disparaging
without Spencer throwing up in the background.
Your 19-year-old nephew that you drugged from Ohio, just ralphing in the snow right beside you. It's like dark and all this stuff, but anyway.
Little did we know that was the easiest climb of the trip.
Yeah, we didn't know. I mean, those first 3 miles, even though there was snow, were the slowest elevation raise that we went, the gain that we went through. But anyway, once he got in the tent, things, it was like okay, fire, things are good. Like just wait on Cody or whatever. But yeah, it was definitely like at that point it was like, and I think Spencer even said he's like, I'm not sure if this can get much worse. And I was thinking to myself, I'm not sure it can either because lost or forgotten llama, one guy's sick, and you're spiked right in the middle of a trail.
We're not where we're supposed to be. Yeah, like all these things. No, I will say, we were talking about this a little bit during the trip, but it's like you guys went through such a true elk hunt, like in all the fashions of changes, on the fly decisions, moving camp, like all these things that happened, I feel like are very, very realistic.
And frankly, I'm glad it went that way because, like, if so if it was just like, okay, just like bomb, jump on a plane, get out here, everything's gonna be comfortable and like
go to the lodge,
yeah, exactly,
dinner,
like just
milk in the morning,
we know right where they're at. We're gonna drive out there in the morning. You're gonna set up. You're gonna make the shot, and then I mean, that's to me, that's not real. That's not real. And
this is not a good. This was hunting.
Yeah,
that's not a good
example.
example. Like if you're trying to like tell somebody, like so for guys like us, like being deer hunters from Ohio, it's like you're just gonna have your random stuff like you've gathered over the years, and coats and hats and whatever. And like if you get cold, like you can just walk back to the truck or whatever.
Put something else on.
Yeah, or just 20, 30 minutes from anything. Like if you go to your cabin, like it's not whatever. But like if you're just gonna be brand new and you're gonna start out, like it's better I think to experience it this way because you need to know like because as it progressed, and I don't want to get into that now, but like you start to realize like the important like the things that you have to your systems. So it's like you kind of start to create systems at work.
Yeah.
But if it was just like like let's just fly you guys out here, let's get you landed, like pick you up, get you a good meal, like just relax, whatever. I don't think that would have been as good of an experience, and it wouldn't have been a true experience in my opinion. So.
Well, it wouldn't have got you to where you could do it on your own. Like now I feel like
exactly.
kind of like, okay, this is what it takes to go through this instead of going to a ranch, in, I don't know, Colorado and shooting an elk on day one. That would not prepare you for like what it is.
No.
But I want to circle back, and this is where my foot goes in my own mouth because us three met at a meat event.
Correct.
So meat had a kickoff party. They make, you guys have probably seen them there. They make processing equipment for DIY hunters, just like that.
Madewithmeat.com or meetyourmaker.com to find out everything about them.
Yeah. And so they had this kickoff party, and so I met these guys, and we hit it off. Well, Scott and I didn't, but that's a different story.
Save that for another day.
So we hit it off.
I just saw this cowboy dude with this cool mustache and just went over and sat down and started talking to him. So
yeah, we just hung out. We had a good time. I think we have a lot in common outside of
Agreed.
that.
Very, very similar history of the way we were
introduction
raised.
to hunting.
For sure.
Stuff.
And so the discussion came around of elk hunting, and everyone at the table was talking about how elk hunting is like this pinnacle thing, and it's up on a pedestal. I was like, no, you guys need to not put elk hunting on a pedestal. It's so easy. Anyone can do it. So this is where my foot goes in my mouth because I feel like this week was so hard.
This was just the initiation for the next trip.
Yeah. And I kind of told you throughout the week, I'm like, okay, we got through the hard part.
Let's
now
run the gauntlet, okay?
Well, that was the easy part.
Yeah. So you guys went through the ringer, but it could be easier, it could be harder. I don't know. I feel like it wasn't middle of the road. We definitely worked for it this week. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that's kind of Western hunting. And I do think that one of the things that I would like to get into people's head is that it's very doable. You don't have to put it on a pinnacle or a pedestal of like, this is the once in a lifetime thing, but you do have to work way harder than you think.
Yeah. I feel
Does that make sense? Because it's
yes. So I feel like, for the entry point, if you're going by yourself, so you guys definitely lower the bar for us, like you and Mark, because, definitely shorten the curve, but there's going to be a curve there.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the biggest thing was just the expanse of the country. So it's just like, for wherever you're from, say if you're from, no introduction to Western hunting.
Say Ohio.
Say Ohio. You're going to like, okay, I know how to hunt. I hunt, I've been cold, all these things, whatever. But what you're not going to be prepared for is just the grand scale of it. So if it's like, if you're used to hiking, half hour from the truck, times that by, at least 5. So you're talking 3 hours.
Yeah.
And for me, like the one thing that was like at first, because we in snow camp we didn't see any elk.
Yeah.
And it was like Mark and Cody made the decision. We're gonna move.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, cool with this. It's not a big deal. and then when we got to the new camp, like Mark and I saw it. Well, Mark saw it, the elk, instantly. Like we had just barely sat down and started glassing. But it was literally coming over the top of a mountain 3 miles away. Like I'm thinking
you weren't
like,
looking 3 miles
no,
away.
I mean, and then the other thing that was so remarkable to me is that if you, I think it was noon or something like that. And this was kind of like one of those things where it just kind of dawned on me at the moment that if you see an elk like that 3 miles away at noon, you're going to get on it. Like you're going to cross all of that. Like that just, it would never even enter my mind. So I think that's just one of those things where it's like, hunting with you guys, it definitely like opened you up instantly to knowing what it takes to get, because you can get in there. Like I think like with the trailheads and things like that, like you can sit at home, you can do all the research, you can get the trailheads, you can get the trails, you can do whatever, and you can get yourself there.
Yeah.
But like to just know that it's going to take way more. Like if you see, like when you guys talk about like camping on a bowl, like just doing whatever, that's what was kind of remarkable to me. And that's one of the things that like, coming from the East, it's like, I wouldn't even think about going 2 miles, and like you did that one day, Cody, where you're like, and you didn't even see anything.
Cody
like, I know there's elk over there. I'm going to go hunt over there.
Well,
like,
we were at Hail Mary phase, and like
we were, but like that's such a wild, and like just that piece of knowledge may change your hunting experience in the future because you're like, okay, I know that I need to be keyed up to do that if that's the case versus like, I'm just going to sit here and watch them because
that's not a thing.
Well, you have to see him first. Cody was so good at it just.
Well, that's the other thing.
He'd pull up his Mavens and just be like.
I was thinking like you're just going to see this animal, but no, it's a dot.
Yeah, and like, Cody's like elk. There's elk. Let's go.
And, well, like the first time I'm like, there's elk. I'm like, oh, there's another one. It says like
Where?
And like I don't think he was looking at the right mountain because there was like a hill, and he's like looking at the hill. He's like, I don't see it.
I see a rock. The thing about Montana is there are mountains upon mountains upon mountains between you and the mountain that you're trying to get to. Like anything between you and the peak. We would call a mountain, but I feel like for you guys, it's just like a knob. Let's go to that knob.
It's like walking. It's like walking to the next county for us.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. So we went to first spot. There wasn't much elk. We should tell the water story. That's kind of funny.
Oh yes,
so
the water.
The water
is interesting. I feel like I'm still trying to decipher if this was like if there were like levels that we had to check off to like just like okay, we're gonna test him here.
This was the initiation process.
Check.
I'm convinced.
Now we're gonna test him here.
Yeah.
Check.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, they're still with us. Like I'm not sure. So I'm still trying to
it started
decipher
out
that.
as like okay, I want to go to this spot. It was 6 miles in. And the irony of this is like Mark is the best e-scouter I know by a long shot. And I had picked this spot out. And when I told Mark where we were going, Mark hadn't planned on going with us. I was going to use his llamas. And then he kind of hemmed and hawed. And I was like, Mark, you should come with us. It'll be fun. And he's like, no, I don't want to go on your guys' hunt. Blah, blah. I'm like, Mark, come.
Mark was great.
Oh,
his stories alone.
Oh my goodness.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
I know. I wish he was on the podcast, but he had to get home before we had a storm coming in. So he wanted to get the llamas home with the horse trailer before the snow came. But anyway, so when I told him where I was going, he's like, oh, I've been looking at that spot, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that was like confirmation in my head that I was doing it right. I'm like, yes, this is the right spot. And we get there, and when we crested the top to go into this basin, I just had this feeling like, let's take a look first. Like, let's just tie the llamas up. I want to look down in there. I've never been here. And as soon as we did, Mark and I were both like, we shouldn't go there.
They're not here.
They're not here. Well, it wasn't even that it wasn't huntable as we thought with this level of snow that we had. So it was kind of like, okay, we're going to camp on top.
You didn't want to see us cry. That's what it was.
A little bit of that. Yeah. Like that was a partial,
bend but not break.
Yes, bend but not break. So once we had to camp on top, then it was like, okay, this is a water situation. So anytime you camp away from running water, pond, whether it's open water or a creek or whatever, now it's like we're cooking snow. Mm-hmm. Cooking snow is a little bit time consuming and a lot of resource consuming. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have the gas per se to cook snow for 5 dudes for however long we were going to be, plus llamas. Like it was not feasible. So we're like, okay, let's cook it on fire. And as soon as we left,
smoked water.
smoked water. So as soon as we left that morning, I was like, Mark, you know what we forgot? We forgot anything to cook water on. And I was like, but we do have a frying pan. So that frying pan came in.
That's 12 inches of ash capturing water surface.
Which by Nalgene still tastes like smoked water.
Yeah.
You know, I think we could bottle it and sell it.
Yeah, I think
it's the next vitamin water.
Experience. You know, I'm thinking about putting my Bearded Butcher camper mug on eBay and like donating to charity whatever proceeds it gets because it has a little bit of everything. Yeah, it's got this fire water, which I actually asked Mark. I told Spencer, I was like, we were up on the mountain this morning. I was like, I'm getting a hint of so after we moved camps, I'm getting ahead of ourselves. But then it was we had water. We were getting in a bucket out of the creek, or whatever, and using the steri pen. But anyway, I was like, I wonder if Mark's using the same bucket to water the llamas as we're dipping our water out of. And I was like, it kind of tastes like llama. Which he convinced me that he wasn't, but I'm not sure. I think we might have went from smoked campfire water to llama drool water.
So before Scott said anything about the llama water to me, I was like drinking it. I was like, this has a funny taste to it. I'm not sure what it is.
I will say you guys were troopers. You guys were troopers because I was like, I took a drink, the first firewater, smoke. Firewater sounds like it's got alcohol.
Yeah, right.
Smoke water. It is like the smokiest water. And I took one drink. I was like, oh, God. Like, there's no way these guys are going to drink this.
We lived on it for 2 days.
Yeah, for 2 days we drank that crap. And then, all the way down the mountain, I was like,
I don't want to take a drink.
Wait. Yeah, I'll just wait.
You just kept eating snow.
Yeah, I did.
I was not doing that because after puking from dehydration, I was like, I'm not going through that again. Smoke water it is.
Yeah, just chug it down.
The key is don't look at it.
Yeah, hold your breath.
So what was your guys' thought when you had to drink smoke water? I feel like that was still early enough in the trip that you were like,
that wasn't a deal breaker for me. No, not at all. I mean,
that
I was like
the red button.
No. For what we've gone through in our lives, no.
I mean, it was fine. Like,
it was fine.
I might put some water or some snow on a campfire this winter and just to relive it.
Yeah. Okay.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't bad. It was not good, but it wasn't. I was just happy to have water.
The IV straws, the hydration straws that we had, those helped because it had like a little bit of lemon flavor, so it was like lemon smoke.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So we ran into 0.0 elk up there.
Didn't see an elk.
Mountain
goats. 2 goats. Yep.
Yeah. Mountain goats came into camp. Mm-hmm. That's how high we were.
Yeah, we were up there.
Yeah. So we decided to move camp, which was good. We moved camp and instantly started seeing elk. And it was like, okay, now we're in them. And we actually ran into a guy who was coming out, or I guess he was headed back in, packing out elk.
The rest of his
and
kill.
I was pretty excited because he's like, man, I was up here and there's elk coming out of the woodworks,
Hundreds, by the hundreds.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, he's probably exaggerating. He was not.
No, they're everywhere.
Yeah. So we hike in. Where was like morale at this point?
It was great. Actually, because at that point, I was feeling a little bit more like we were kind of, because back in Ohio, like when you go, because we had done the whole, change from the mountain to the new mountain. So it's like, you're in the truck and like, everything's like, but that night we had camped at the trailhead and like, I was feeling pretty good because it was like, whole change of scenery and everything like that. Yeah. Like no snow.
Yeah.
And the weather was,
warmed up a lot.
It was warm. So like you had that, it was actually really hot getting up the mountain. But like, seeing the guy coming in to recover the remainder of his elk was very exciting because it's like, somebody's got to kill here. Like, like there's elk and whatever. So my morale was good. Not excited about hearing about bears. I think anybody that's not from around here, like bear is just like a trigger word. Like there's no, it's just sensationalized. There's no like, bears are okay. Like bears are good. Like I remember messaging you, Cody, about like, doing any bear stuff. And you're like, I just usually say, shoe bear, get home. I'm like, that's okay, whatever. So, the bears were on my mind.
We're reading the signs of the trailhead, all that.
Get a little nervous?
Beware of
I was excited at this point.
Yeah.
I was excited to
I wasn't excited about the climb.
Yeah, me
well, no.
Because
reality had set in long before that you're just going to have to suck it up.
Things are just
going to
keep getting worse.
Put one foot in front of the other. So, no trepidation. No, morale, personally, I was excited.
I felt like morale was high. I was a little frustrated because, like, we had not gotten into elk. We had to move camps. The plan had changed. And I feel like a part of it for me was this is not going the way I had planned, which is kind of frustrating for someone who's like trying to show new hunters the experience.
Right.
But at the same time, I felt like this weird sensation of like, this is so elk hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like this truly how it goes.
Oh, I know. I was like kind of laughing. I'm like, this has been quite the gong show. And but that's how it should be.
This is hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hunting for sure. And then we're going to the next place. And when that guy was like going in to pack out his elk, and he was telling us how many elk he saw, I'm like, cool, like game on, this is it. And then I spot the first elk at another 1,500 feet above where we were camped, and we climbed up. And then it was like all the elk I was seeing were on top. They were on top of the mountain.
We climbed 2,000 feet, and the elk were still another 1,500 feet above that.
Yes.
And that's literally where Mark and I saw the first elk coming over the top of the skyline.
Yeah.
That was my first elk that I laid eyes on in Montana, was a cow skylined 3 miles away, another 1,500 feet above me.
And you're like, oh, that's a pretty sight. We're not going there.
I didn't even realize elk, like, that was their range, that high. Figured that was just for, like, goats.
Oh, no. Well, a lot of that's weather. So the weather was unseasonably warm.
Mm-hmm.
Which
and that's
is
the one
ironic, 'cause
variable that you cannot, with
can't
hunting,
control.
you
Yeah.
cannot control.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
our hunt's planned. Flights are booked.
And that
We're
was the
coming
tough part.
regardless.
Is like, when I say Montana residents like to hunt like the third storm or whatever, like people will wait till they get pushed down a certain amount. So even a lot of hunts, even I will say, okay, here's my date range. But if it's a long enough season, I will base that on storms, on nothing else. Because I would rather go when they're going to be pushed down. So we're not climbing that high. All these things that don't get factored in when it's like, here's the dates, hard, fast, that's it. So it was kind of like, oh boy, they're going to be at the top. And it was funny because the first camp was too high. And then the second camp,
too high, too much snow. The second camp was
way too hot.
Yeah.
Not enough snow.
Yeah.
And the elk were too high, ironically. But
the cows were there, but the bulls weren't.
Yeah, long and short of it is we saw a bajillion cows and spikes.
I got tired of looking at cows.
Wow, really?
Yeah, at first it was really fun. It was like, oh man, I'll just watch this thing.
I did love sitting there listening to them communicate.
Yeah.
That was cool.
So
I
cool.
didn't get that experience.
Yeah, when you see an elk herd at 60, 75 yards, and they're just they're going back and forth, communicating, moving up through the forest.
Well, awesome. And it was funny because one time, if you watched the video, you probably would have seen. But we were on a herd of probably 20 or 30 at the end there, and they were walking by and you could see them through the trees one by one. And Seth was going, cow.
Yeah, I was counting them
cow, spike, cow, just
waiting for antler, for bull. And as soon as I said bull, Scott was going to be on it.
Yeah. We had this one situation where Mark and Spencer and I, so mountain. I feel like we need to talk about mountain. Spencer,
we can't say that word.
We can't say it. It's a trigger word for Spencer's PTSD.
We'll say giant mountain.
Giant mountain.
Okay.
So there's this giant mountain, and Spencer had climbed it the day before with Seth and Cody, and then Mark and myself and Spencer climbed it the second day. But anyway, we spotted a herd of elk on the east side or whatever.
But you talked down how much harder you worked not climbing Giant Mountain. When we climbed Giant Mountain the first day.
You guys were going
and
vertical.
You were like, oh, I know you guys think that was a big thing.
You were going vertical. We were going long.
Yeah. You guys went like two little bounces over.
I think I should point out that I was
little knolls.
I think I should point out that I was accompanying the superhuman 12-time Ironman world qualifier.
How much older than you?
That's irrelevant.
Mark is a beast.
Mark is a beast.
He is.
And Mark was great. But anyway, we saw these elk and they were off to the east. But anyway, we circled around that, and Mark's like, I don't know that elk will be there, and he did. He got us close. because I had said, well, I want to go up on this rock and like I know they're down there or whatever. And he's like, no, they're going to feed down.
You're downplaying that.
I didn't want to go down the mountain. That's what
You
it was.
cried like a little baby.
I was like,
We're gonna go down this mountain.
We had made it to the top of the mountain. I'm like, I'm not setting 1 foot further down the mountain until I figure out if we're not coming back up. So I'm like, I'll just stay up here till dark, and then I'll just go down there. Because
Did I ever tell you I was not going to go up the mountain?
No,
never.
Scott was like,
let's
whoa,
do this,
whoa, whoa.
Cody.
As soon as we start talking about going down and then back up, he's like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa.
The only thing I ever said was I may need a break.
We should interject, which Spencer and Seth both and Cody climbed that mountain twice, back-to-back days.
The giant mountain twice.
The giant mountain.
To the top. Thank you.
Point made. But Mark, so yes, I was like, I'm not going, and I'm like, if we were side hilling, I was like, I'm going to stay 10 yards above them, just in the rare chance that they decided to come back up, because that way I'm not going one. So anyway, and we should talk a little bit about like just, fitness levels and everything like that.
My feet are tingling just thinking about giant mountains.
Yeah. Because just that repetition is what.
If not to interrupt you, but if anybody from the Midwest is preparing to come out here and do something like we did, and you've prepped for it and you think you're prepping for it, you're
probably
not.
a little bit.
You are.
I feel
you're
like
not
you guys
ready.
prepped.
No way.
I feel like
We did.
And the thing is, like you can't. I think
we hit the 6 miles with the 80-pound packs and stuff, but it just wasn't.
Since
to
you're
this
not
level.
the two things
you
you're not
have
doing
to
is
be ready.
you're not at elevation and you're not gaining elevation.
Yeah.
So like if you're starting at 5,000 and you're going to 8,500, that you're not going to find that anywhere in the eastern United States. I mean, maybe like the Appalachians or something like that, but like that's the thing that was like, and I felt like my lungs and my legs were like elevators like passing each other. So as my lungs were coming, because it did happen, I felt like after like 3 days it was starting to catch up. Like it was like the wind was coming, but like the legs were past, like the other elevator was passing, like the legs were going down, and my feet were getting sore. So then like lactic acid was like building up in my legs. They're just like blowing up, take, whatever, 20 yards up the mountain, and like your legs are just on fire. So anyway.
If you could go back, like not to interrupt, but if you could go back 3 months ago, what advice would you give yourself? Maybe even 6 months ago. I don't know when we started planning this.
So I don't think we could have done much different.
Other
with
than
training,
to hit more.
You definitely can't carry extra weight like by being overweight in the mountains. I don't think that's going to do you any good at all. The thing I probably would have done is just, and Mark suggested this, was just find a Stairmaster, put the pack on, because those knees are going to be going one over the other repetitively. And that's the thing that like, I mean, you're either going downhill or uphill. There's really no, I mean, there on the rare occasion, or side hill.
The only level spot we had was camp.
Yeah.
Everything
you're
else was
just
up or
not
down.
going to level out hardly ever. And like, so yeah, I think the only thing I would have probably done different was just like get on some stairs, because that's probably the closest thing that you could do to getting.
On average, Cody, during elk season, how many miles a day do you walk?
So kept track this year. 15's a high day. I had multiple days in the 15 range. I would say 12 to, let's say 11 to 14-ish.
So think about this, guys. Going to your local park and walking 3 miles isn't going to cut it if you're going to walk 12 to 15 miles a day.
3 miles gets you to the first glassing spot in my opinion.
Exactly. Like you have to be ready.
Here's what happened. Well, the stair stepper is really good, and I will say if you're short on time, and like there's a lot of Western guys that'll say, well, you have to train like whatever, and scouting is the best way. I don't have 2 hours. Like you can't do much under 2 hours if you're like only gonna hike hills.
Yeah.
So an hour a day isn't gonna do much in that capacity. So I do think the stair stepper is the fastest way to simulate what you're going to do with a 20-minute-a-day exercise. Yeah. The thing that the stair stepper doesn't do, and this is, you have to beat your feet up, because then that's the reality of what it is. Is like when you side hilled and you're like, oh my God, my feet are killing me. It's because when's the last time your feet side hilled?
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which to interject Spencer, so like there is kind of the entry point too, because like we're all three about the same size, bigger guys or whatever, so you're gonna be able to handle your pack and do all that stuff.
Yeah, the pack's not the problem.
No, but a guy like Spencer, he's 19 years old, his frame's filling out or whatever, but he does CrossFit. So like Mark had pointed this out too. It's like it's not a bad way because like you're also gonna have the mental side of it too, right?
Yep.
So like you're gonna want to find like, and Spencer maybe wants to interject a little bit of this, but like you're gonna like I feel like with elk hunting, it's like you're kind of living in the yellow area a lot, like, and then you have to maybe hit the red line like briefly. And that can be CrossFit too. Yep. Like, so like it helps you with that mental side of things. Like, because the one thing that I didn't point out was that two things we didn't do. We didn't chase elk, and we did. But
Cody did. No, I witnessed Cody charge up the mountain.
I'm saying like, okay, there they are. We've got 20 minutes to get over there. We got to close the gap.
Right. Yeah.
We didn't have to do that so much, and we didn't pack meat. So like those are the two things that I think that can really like make that gut check happen.
But the reality of packing meat, and this is the reality, and people want to talk
Probably
about being
adrenaline
fit
and stuff like that too.
No. How many breaks can you take when you're packing meat?
As many.
What
as
else you got to do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't care. Like if you smoke cigarettes, you can still pack it on elk.
Mm-hmm.
Like it may take you a long time, but I do think that like so Mountain Tough Fitness is I do quite a bit of Mountain Tough Fitness where it's like it's a HIIT workout, so it's not CrossFit, it's not anything.
Right.
But what that will do is increase your recovery time.
Sure.
Now he's 19, so he's got that over us. So his recovery time. So when he climbs Giant Mountain and we're halfway up and we stop to take a break, Seth's gonna take a little bit longer than me and he's probably faster than I am at recovery.
Yeah.
So to speak.
That's one thing that I noticed as the week wore on. My recovery times shortened dramatically.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, I'd felt if we'd have stayed in the back country another week,
you kept telling me that.
I would have been on Cody's tail.
One more week.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been
Seth
able
was
to leave
going
me in
to
the
take
dust.
those 15 years that you've been doing it, Cody, and just shorten them into
Yeah.
1 week.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I got so much better though as the week went on.
Yeah.
I did too.
I feel the same way.
But at the same time, because your feet are so virgin, they're starting to wear out.
Yep.
I will say this.
That's the first thing that wears out. And people talk about this all the time. Like, you have to get used to your boots. You have to do all these things. And the reason is not necessarily that breaking in your boots is important. It's that feet are important. And when your boots are broken, usually, A, there's a little bit of miles on them. But B, they're not going to tear your feet up. And tearing your feet up is the first thing that will kill you on an elk hunt.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. And you guys had pretty good... I mean, no one had feet problems, right?
No, I think we held
couple
together
little
pretty well.
blisters.
Yeah, towards the end of the week, things were, maybe a few hot spots.
You had that hot spot. We taped it up. We thought we were all professional. You made it like 10 feet. You're like, this is worse. This is worse.
But I think it's key, though, that you're like, okay, because I didn't want to stop everybody because we just literally started. But I was like, no, stop. I'm taking my boot off. I'm figuring out what, And so, like, what had happened with that particular event was we went up in a snow camp. I was just wearing like the liners, like the thin part, and it felt great. When I got up there, and I was like, no, the next day I need to wear wool socks. So I just wore one pair of wool, no liner or whatever, and I trucked around like 2 miles looking, for elk.
Yeah.
I kind of went on a little Rambo mission there, but anyway. I noticed it. Like,
Sidebar. There's a guy down there.
Hiking over there.
me and Seth were glassing.
That's our guy.
Yeah.
He was so pissed. Like, 'cause we didn't see anybody. He's like,
Cody's
there's
like,
a
that's
guy
your
down there.
brother.
I was like, that's your brother.
Me and Seth went to glass. He went over to go pee like after 15 minutes of waiting there, and I'm looking. I'm like, I see orange. There's a guy over there.
Yeah.
So me and Seth were like, well, shoot.
Scott had gone rogue. But anyway, I noticed it right away, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to switch out those socks and put back on what I know works.
Yeah.
Well, then I kind of got to overthinking about it. Like, I need to tape it or whatever. And then once the tape went on, we were in the new spot, then it immediately started talking to me with the tape on. I was like, no. I know it works. Like, this is not working. I'm not going to just tough it out.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stop and take and then I was pretty much fine the rest of the week.
Which, speaking of socks, Cody had great advice because every single day my feet were just soaking wet from sweat. Mm-hmm. But Cody said, hey, best way to dry your feet is get in your sleeping bag, leave your socks on.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes it's hard to sleep like that because if you don't sleep with socks on at home, you're like, this feels weird.
Well,
but it works. It works because, slide your feet in the Stone Glacier
Mm-hmm.
bag, and the next morning you wake up and your feet are dry.
Well, I want to point out that my sleeping bag, if you asked me if it was like one thing you went onto that mountain with, it would be my sleeping bag.
Get a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
Because like that's your lifesaver.
Definitely.
Because like
It is your lifeline.
Yeah.
It is.
100%.
I mean, like,
and when we get in real bad weather, like
Yeah.
it is 100% your only lifeline.
There- if
So
there was-
it dipped down into what, like the low 30s
yeah,
at night
yeah, maybe high 20s.
in the Stone Glacier. I mean, I one night I was in my boxers. It was
well,
I was
yeah. On
hot.
that subject alone, that was I think like night 4 or 5 for me. So I was like, okay, it was like a mild night, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and sleep in my boxers. Well, I climbed into my sleep bag. And this is where I said I felt like my body was covered in queso cheese.
No, hold on. Spencer and I so we had 2 tents, and we put the snorers.
The snorers had to go in
Seth
one.
and
Mark and I
had their own
snoring
tent,
buddies,
and us 3 were in a tent.
earplugs and everything.
And Seth's like, he's like, I feel like my body's covered in that creamy cheese stuff
That
you
was
put
me.
on chips.
Yeah,
and I'm like, queso?
Queso?
He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, queso.
Because like the sweat and everything, and like so I was sticking together. Bare skin to bare skin was not a good idea. So
That
like,
wasn't the pitch?
No. So I went ahead and I put on long johns or whatever. But like, yeah, the sleeping bag was money because like even if you pack it in your pack and you get stuck, like you can crawl in that thing. And,
That was a life hack from Cody.
yeah.
Take your sleeping bag with you up to glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, on
you can
snow
always
camp,
crawl in
'cause
it,
Like
yeah.
you can just stick yourself in there, and like those things were just absolute gold.
Well, and this
Yeah.
is like when it comes to it doesn't even have to be backpack hunting. It's just like these hacks that save weight. And we got to talk about this because you guys showed up to trailhead, and you guys did really, really well for newbies. It was good pack
Thank you.
weights, everything.
Thank you.
I,
Some extra stuff.
I do want to point out
Yeah.
that like I get a message from Seth that's got like all of his gear lined out. And then, like 10
Lots
minutes
of
later, there was like way too many wipes. And then like a minute later, you get one from Scott. And it's like everything in his basement.
Yard
just, like,
sale. Yeah, still packaged.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's like, you learn through doing these things, and I'm sure you guys picked this up because like when we were at the trailhead, and I was laughing at you for some things.
need
Like
that.
you don't
Don't
need
need
that.
that.
Throw that out.
Leave
Throw
that
that out.
there.
Yeah.
And you realize that like it's amazing what you need or don't need. And I do feel like when you start out, everyone goes into these things like, oh, this is life or death. Like I'm gonna need this. But the reality is, as you start to do it, you whittle that down into what you really need.
Oh, for sure.
And we were talking about that this morning about how you're like there's systems and like it does seem like unorganized chaos, but at the same time you get into these like micro routines,
Yes.
if you will. Does that make sense?
It does, and
Yeah.
you even start to learn like what can stay at camp, what can go with me for the day, and things like that.
So I do feel a little bit like, so Scott and I are both pilots. And so when we were flying with our instructor, you always felt a lot more comfortable when you're with your instructor. And it was kind of like that when we were with you and Mark because we felt like, we really couldn't
weren't flying solo,
Right.
Yeah.
Because we had you guys to rely on. So it was like, I don't know. It was
Could
a
you
lot
do it
easier.
solo though?
I think you could, but you get yourself in way more trouble.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think that's what like with you guys like is shorten the curve so dramatically that if you were to do it solo, and I know there's people that probably yes, the answer is yes, you could do it solo. You'd spend all this time probably researching maps and things like that. I think that if you were going to do it solo, if you so hunting experience definitely is
You
is a
have
big
to
help.
have the gear.
Oh yeah.
You have to have the gear, but I
gear.
feel like
Really?
I mean, if
I,
you were,
I,
if
okay,
you
here's
had-
where I disagree, and not that I disagree. There's some things you need. Forever I've said buy tags, not gear. And what I mean by that is not that like gear isn't not important. It's that you should buy experiences and not gear. But I feel like for most people, now maybe it's different, and maybe I'm dead wrong on this. Correct me, but for the most part, the gear you have would work.
the only thing I
Not the
think
gear we grew up with.
Yes,
It
here's
never
what I would
would've
like.
worked, Cody.
Here's
Really?
No.
what I'd like to interject. Split the country in half, okay?
Okay.
So you're from Oregon.
Yeah.
So Oregon to I don't know, let's just say Iowa. Okay? You're gonna have a far greater tolerance, understanding, whatever have you, for what you're getting yourself into. If you go to the other half of the country, I'm telling you, you cannot really get yourself in trouble in Ohio because
No.
you cannot. So element wise, it's not nearly as drastic. You can't really get yourself away from a road,
Yeah.
so to speak. So I feel like, yes, if you're a Western guy, you're probably going to be okay. Like like hearing some of your guys' stories, like, I whatever, I spent the night on the mountain. I spent 3 nights. I mean, Mark had some crazy stories about stuff that he had done, That's just not going to happen in the eastern United States.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe in, like I said, an Appalachian mountain range or something like that.
But this is where you should correct me, because like I tell a lot of people this, and this goes back to the very first day we met, and I was like, whoa, elk hunting's not that hard.
I would,
and I realized
I would not advise it to an eastern, midwestern, eastern, even if you have hunting experience, you'd better have really good outdoorsy experience, and just in the sense of like even like back country.
this week was extreme though.
I
mean,
know,
we
but I'm just telling you, I
snow-camped.
kept running through my mind that you could get yourself. It's like if you just bought a plane ticket, and you I don't know. Let's
Don't
just
buy
say,
a plane ticket and go to grizzly country first.
well,
time.
for
Right,
sure.
right.
But any pick a trailhead. If you were just like, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to, and I know Mark has the great East scouting course and stuff like that, but like there's just, I just feel like you could get yourself into trouble really fast, and not know what to do.
Yeah.
In the event of like, even hearing you guys talk about bears and stuff like that. but,
Water's
like,
a great example.
water,
And like here's where like it takes knowledge and experience. Like things didn't even go sideways; they just got adjusted slightly.
Sure.
But then it was like the whole week, water was somewhat of an issue.
a little bit.
And because the first time it was like, okay, there is no water, so we have to use snow. The second one was that, so I had a gravity feed filter, and
Stop working.
and it stopped working. And the filter was brand new. I wasn't worried about it. Like we go into this trip, I'm like, okay, we came back from New Mexico, torched that thing, and I haven't used it since. Brand new filter, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the smoke water, because we were filtering smoke water through it. I don't know. I still don't know why,
Sure.
but that goes out, right? So now it's back to plan B. But of course, Mark and I both have sturdy pins. So we had a backup, where I feel like some people would have gone into that situation like, oh, I have a filter. It's fine. And Mark and I have just been on enough of these. It's like, well,
Here's
where's
what
my,
we're doing.
yeah, here's what
Yeah.
we're doing. And if we
Yeah.
didn't have that, we'd have tabs, even though I told you guys to throw
Well,
your filter.
the X
down.
factor, the X factor might be elevation, because like if you think about Spencer, for example, okay, so he comes out there, and like Seth and I have both been to the West in brief intervals and slept at elevations, things like that for work and whatever. But anyway, Spencer's not. He's never been. I don't know. Have you ever been over 1,000 feet, Spencer, other than an
I
airplane?
highly doubt it. The farthest west I've been is Chicago.
Exactly.
Like,
okay. So think about that.
And that's not west.
So Spencer hops on a plane, okay, flies out here. Let's just hypothesize he's a solo hunter. He's done all of his homework. He's done all this stuff. Maybe he can't afford a good sleeping bag. Let's just say that. He's got whatever he picked up at Walmart or whatever near him.
Yeah.
So he flies out here, and the weather looks decent or whatever, and he's gonna get here, and once he get here, everything's gonna be great because he's done all his research and all this stuff. And this is where I'm talking Eastern guys. So he gets here, he gets to the trailhead by whatever means. Let's say he has Uber, who knows? He gets out there,
Yeah.
drops off. He's gonna go just set the world on fire, or whatever. He's gonna self-film it, do whatever. So he's fit enough. He gets himself 3 miles up and in. Okay. Well, say the same thing happens with all the changes he went through that day. He's sick. He's dehydrated. He doesn't have so there's no water, snow. He can't, say he does build a fire or whatever. Well, I mean, if he didn't have that darn sleeping bag to crawl into, it could have just started. And Mark even talked about this. Usually it's a series of events that
Totally.
kind of, as they compound things to
Yep.
the waterfall effect or whatever. So, I mean, I feel like, to just advise somebody that, like, yes, you can do it, like, in the sense of, like, oh, gosh, I don't know. I don't know if you could just, I'm sure there are people that have, but, like, you just, there's things that can go wrong, and I think that, like, just to get on a plane and just bomb out here and just head up into the mountains, probably not the smartest
pretty dangerous.
thing to do.
Yeah.
I think
I feel like we had a huge advantage with you guys.
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sure we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would argue that the adventure is worth it. So,
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
I already put my
For
foot in
sure.
my mouth, and I'll admit to that. Like, okay, maybe it's not as easy as I like to play it up. Maybe it's in my mind easier than it really is for other people. But I will say the whole putting an elk hunt on the pedestal of someday I'm going to do that. Do you think that going on an elk hunt changed your perspective? Changed the trajectory of your life, maybe?
Well, maybe this is a better question for Seth because he was probably more of a lofty goal for him. Like,
I mean, for me, I'm not really a hunter at all. Like,
right?
I've shot 2 deer in my life, and that was when I was like 12.
Yeah, but you got some sweet Instagram pictures.
I did. I did. All thanks to Cody Rich and Mark.
So for me, growing up watching outdoor television.
Because before you start,
Yeah.
people, I think, I talk to a ton of people, and maybe this isn't you, but for a large portion of the people, they're like, someday I want to go on an elk hunt. Someday. Yeah. And they put that up there, and they're like, someday. Someday never happens.
Right. So
for sure. And don't let yourself get older because it's not going to get any easier.
So for me, this has always been a dream. It was way harder than I could have ever imagined. Doing a backpack llama.
I don't think Cody's getting the answers that he expects.
No. The answers I get, like I don't care.
I think it's so much different if you're adapted to the Western lifestyle.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if you watch outdoor television, I don't think that's real elk hunting.
No,
it's not. No, you're not getting the full experience of it.
No,
because what we experienced this week was real elk hunting.
And so the only so you can glean from every experience you have, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, like, let's say the elk is the carrot on a stick. Doesn't mean that you have to. The point was to try to kill an elk, right?
Yeah.
And we had some opportunities, but like, so for example, all the way back to my story about Mark we had spotted elk on the east side of the big mountain, and we knew they were there, and I want to stay up in the mountain because, like I said, I didn't want to walk down the mountain. Once I get up there, I'll just wait.
You guys go down?
Okay. And in fact, I had Mark convinced to lead me up on this rock. And he was like, sure. And I had Onyx. I had marked our camp and like things like that. But on that subject alone, like until you learn to read contours and stuff like that, like I know the shortest distance between two places is a straight line. Not the case. Like
no.
Not the case. If you're new and like because what I would have done is I would have just pointed myself towards camp and just headed there.
Yeah.
But whatever's between me and camp.
No, we did that once.
I took Seth.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we have to bring that up.
We
soon.
do. We have to talk about all the deadfall and.
So anyway, Mark was going to leave me. He's going to let me do my thing, and I was like, okay. And then Seth's like, well, maybe you don't want to do that, whatever.
I was worried about losing my accountant in the West.
Mark's like, no, I know where these elk are coming out. I'm like, okay, so obviously you know a lot more than I do. So he did put us in a perfect position. These elk fed right down to us, and it would have been perfect. Like Mark had set up the hill a little bit, and then like Spencer, Seth, and I had rolled down the hill, and we set up in this little rock nest, and we actually kicked our boots off because our feet were hot, and we're just sitting there, and it was maybe 3:00 in the afternoon, and all of a sudden it was like. Elk, like right where Mark said they would be. Like they feed out and they're 250 to 200 yards away, and like I'm on them. Seth's got the yardage. Like I'm just looking at elk through my scope. Like Spencer's perfect position.
Cow.
Yeah, that's the only
Spike,
thing.
cow.
They weren't legal bulls. Yeah. So like you did everything right, and like that's hunting. Like there's no other way that you can explain it other than just like there is never a guarantee that when you go after game that you're gonna come away with game.
Yeah.
So that's not. I mean, if that's your, I know that's the objective, but like if that's a make or break it for you, then you probably shouldn't be hunting.
Yeah, don't go.
Yeah, because it's not a guarantee.
It's about the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's so many things that you can glean from. Even for us, just to be in big country like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like when we go back to Ohio, like this has inspired me because I think we're way too soft compared to these guys.
Whatever.
I just do because it's just like I mean, the way you guys roll, and it's just like, hey, if it takes us till 4 a.m. to pack out an elk, man, that's what we're gonna do.
There was a point where you said, Cody, we were walking up the mountain to the second camp, and you said, yeah, my record is 58 miles for one elk. And I'm saying, because I think I checked my phone and we did 45.
Yeah.
That was our whole week.
45 miles.
45 miles.
That's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
But
That's it.
I wasn't like that's it. I felt like we did more than 45. But
okay, it was 75. I was wrong.
Yeah.
No, it was 45. But anyway, I was like, man, that's wow. And then like that kind of opens you up though, because it's like, I would have never considered like because in Ohio you shoot a deer and you just drag it, field dress it and you drag it to the truck. Like
that's days of packing. That's not hours. That's not like, oh, it's going to take me an hour to get back to the truck. That's days.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Days of packing.
So these are things that like, definitely I think until you experience them, like
this is one thing that I will say, like the hunting industry has not screwed up. We've just painted the wrong picture because I get a lot of people that want to be these backcountry hunters, right? Mm-hmm. They think like, oh, you guys go backcountry. That's so cool. I want to be a BA and go in the backcountry. And I see these guys 9-10 miles back. I'll be on horseback and see dudes 9-10 miles back. I'm like, you do not understand what you're doing right now.
Right.
You fully do not comprehend the fact that if you kill an elk,
what it's going to take.
What it's going to take. Like, let's say 3 packs of 100 pounds. A 100-pound pack is heavy.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah.
And anyone who thinks like, oh, I could pack 100 pounds, like, not for that. Not for 10 miles. You ain't.
No.
I promise you that. And so let's just say it's 4 packs. Now you have to go. You went in 10. Now you have to go out 10, back 10, out 10, back 10, so on and so forth for 4 trips. This is how the miles start racking up, and this is how people like lose meat, get in trouble, like all these things. And like as a horse guy, we've had a lot of people like, hey, come to us. Can you pack our elk out? Blah blah blah. Like. It's like, no, you're taking our time. Like, as much as I don't want to waste elk, at the end of the day, like, you made the call.
For sure.
You came in here.
So do you feel like a lot of elk gets wasted on the side of the mountain just because people can't pack it out?
Probably more than we'd like to admit.
Yeah. They get the horns and whatever they can carry, and it's like, I'm not going back for a second trip.
Well, no, I don't know about that. I think there's probably people that pack it out, and then they take it to their butcher, and it's not.
Looks like.
Yeah.
Smells
looks like
bad,
they drug it out.
Well,
or just took a long time.
Well, it probably stinks when they get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you guys are familiar with that.
Yeah. We rarely saw. We used to kind of talk about it and be like, man, they're not worried about the quality of the meat as much as it's just like covered in hair and things like that.
Well, okay, so here's so I guess for background, for anybody who doesn't know, these guys are super famous, like basically the Kardashians of butchering.
I don't know about that.
Come on, Cody.
That's quite the title.
It is.
The Kardashians.
Can we pick a new one?
Nope. Stuck with it.
How about like the Robertsons of duck hunting or something like that?
Yeah.
Of butchering?
Butchering.
Yeah.
Or yes.
Or
Yeah.
you've never even killed waterfowl.
I just don't know. I don't know if I want to be called a Kardashian.
Yeah.
Okay.
No
Something
big deal.
else. The butchering side. A lot of people get into hunting because they want to know where their meat comes from. I do find it not to like rain on your guys' industry, but I do find it funny when people are so worried about where their meat comes from, harvesting their own meat, and then they take it to a butcher.
Lose contact with it.
Lose contact with
Yeah.
it.
They may not even get to same meat back.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
That is totally a thing.
Really?
Oh,
yeah.
for sure.
Because like, if you were like a giant deer processing facility, could you tell every single deer that came through and who it went to? And
There's some that do. Not all.
Sure, and we're not going to badmouth those that would. With the fresh products, like okay, so you get a carcass and you're going to break it down. Like, yeah, it's easy enough to like pack the chops and whatever, and even ground meat, and like mark the box or whatever. Like, this is
Jacob's meat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But once you get into further added products, like any trebloin, summer sausage, sticks, anything like that, I mean, you're not going to make like
summer sausage for each deer.
Yeah, because just the batch size is going to be too small, things like that. So you're like, at this point, you're just gonna large batch it, and and then just cut out. So you'll do a green weight. So like Cody Rich has 20 pounds going in, and then you do the percentage of what his loss is going to be.
Yeah.
And so you're saying it's going to have 14 pounds coming out. So once you get the batch done, you pull 14 pounds out of it. And that's pretty common.
That's why we've tried so hard with our channel to teach people how to do it themselves. Because if you go to all the time of getting that elk off the mountain and you've spent the time to butcher it properly, cleanliness, I mean, everything. And then you take it to the local processor and guess what? You get mixed in with the same guy who didn't do that.
Yeah. Well, and this was kind of what I was going to get at is like, I don't feel I've always taken a lot of pride in having the cleanest meat that went to like when I was a kid, we took the meat to the butcher and I knew the butcher. I grew up like going in and out of there. I don't think we've ever talked about this, but I grew up, my dad was friends with this butcher. And so I would run around in the butcher shop all the time and hang out. And, they'd do their thing. And my dad always took pride in having the cleanest deer that went in. So I did too. So when I started killing deer, it was like I wanted my deer perfect, not a hair on that thing if it was going to the butcher. That was before I started doing my own. And so I feel like it's interesting, like, do you feel like some people take so much pride in their organic, like self-harvested meat only to bring in this like super dirty product? Or is that not a thing?
I just don't think they know how.
Yeah, I feel like if they are after like the super healthy organic meat, they'd really do themselves a disservice to like not keep it clean and lose contact with it. But I feel like there are a few that do. Like they're just like, okay, well the objective was to get the meat, and like once I've done that, like
someone else can deal with it.
Yeah, and so like I think you're kind of anytime you lose contact with it, I think that's when your opportunity to just to see it through ends.
So one of the things we didn't get to kind of cover on this week because we didn't kill anything would be like meat care, recovery, all that. So as professional meat guys, what advice and or like systems would you guys recommend for people like in our situation, say elk, right? And we talked about this a little bit when we were coming home. We're like, man, it's crazy warm. We'd be worried about meat if we did have it. Like, at what temps do you worry about it?
Don't stop at the bar and leave your meat laying in the back of the truck in the full sun.
We witnessed that.
We saw 2 antelopes
just in the bed.
First,
it's a very Montana thing. It's like slightly embarrassing. I'm not defending anyone here, but like when I first moved to Montana, it was like seeing deer not skinned on the beds of flatbed trucks is a very, very. You'll see them go through both.
Park it in the shade.
Yeah,
that's that first number one rule is stay out of the sun.
Yeah,
because you're talking. I mean,
or buy a couple of bags of ice and just chuck it up inside the cavity of the thing.
Would that be fair enough?
Oh yeah.
Well, I feel like most Montana rifle guys. Today, I don't know how hot was it today.
60,
it was
64. Yeah,
60. So that's hot. Yeah. So for the most part, I feel like most old school rifle Montana guys would kill their things and it would be like 20 degrees and the thing's frozen before you can get it gutted. So taking the hair off. So there's a theory, and the first time I killed an antelope, it's not in here. I killed an antelope in Montana and the butcher was like, leave this hide on it. Leave the hide on it. And they drop it in the cooler with the hide on it. And in theory, it's so you don't get silver skin. So I don't. This is a very Montana thing. Leave the hide on, let it cool, freeze it up, and then skin it. Is that a thing or no?
So you're saying leave the hide on if you're gonna freeze it?
I'm saying when I killed an antelope, they dropped it in the cooler with a hide on it. I see it in Montana frequently. Like if you were, like this weekend's gonna storm. I promise you, I'll drive through town and someone's gonna have a deer and elk on a flatbed truck with a hide on it.
Covered in snow.
Covered in
whatever.
I think that's gonna protect the meat from drying
fully intact.
out.
But the thing about like quarters with hide on it, oh man, they're gonna be covered in hair.
So this is the other thing we talked about, like because you guys, backtrack. We found chunks of hide on the mountain, and you guys were like, "What is that about?" And Mark and I deducted that it could be outfitters because outfitters like to cut quarters off an animal. They'll take the whole animal, but they'll cut the quarters off with the hair on them so they don't get dirty. But
they do.
But they do because you get hair.
I mean, obviously, like so there was snow.
Yeah.
Even though we were that warm, there was snow around or whatever. So like, talking about meat preservation, things like that. Like obviously cooler temp or let's call them locker temperatures. Ideal. Let's say it's 40 to 40 degrees. Like it's perfect. Like meat's not going to freeze. It's not going to get too hot or anything like that. Obviously, those are ideal temps. We would have probably had that opportunity because at night, it's cooling down. You can hang it in the shade. If there's a breeze on it, that sort of thing. But like, had we killed meat, my goal was to skin it and quarter it, and like it obviously out of the sun and air movement are going to be two keys to
pieces,
like. Yeah, so like, and then, start that natural aging process too.
So I feel like where camp was, even like in the shade by the pine trees, it would have been, in the 40s all day?
At the most.
That would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Just to hang meat.
And obviously keeping air circulating around it. There's
Today,
no bugs or anything like that.
Today coming out would have been most
And the
crucial.
full sun would have been a little bit tricky, but like, yeah. I don't think it would have been a problem with the temperatures that we had. But yeah, I mean, to see animals baking in the sun at 64 degrees
at the bar.
Yeah.
I mean, just shade. Number one, shade. Yeah. Just like
the biggest problem we've seen with wild game over the years is just simply not keeping it.
Well, cold. Not only that, but like, okay, so in Ohio, you're gonna field dress every deer that you, well, hopefully, but
some don't.
Yeah, but the first thing we did deer butchering. Is I would go out to the truck and I would pick up the rear quarter and one up leg and I would look right where the hind quarters were smashed together, and I mean it was not very common, but sometimes you see maggots in there. And it's like
wow!
All you had to do was like let the air throw a bag, like Seth said, throw a bag of ice in there or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like anytime you have just those two hind quarters like mashed, like no air movement through there, nothing like that. So yeah, I mean just. Shade and air movement are two big keys. The hide on, hide off thing, I mean, I've heard it said both ways. I've heard people that age deer like
with the hide on.
Well, I think the western states are different.
The other thing is humidity.
Yeah, because the humidity.
So we're much higher humidity, so stuff's not going to dry out as much. But like if you strip the hide off of something and just hang it in let's say it's 40 degrees and breezy and you put it in a barn, like after 3 days it's going to be leather.
It's like here. Black.
Yeah, because you're going to be so low. The humidity is so
That's
low.
interesting because like the first year we moved here, we were here days, and I shot an elk. It was rifle season. Went out, shot an elk, and it was like 40s something in there. And I, at home I would always just open the garage door, turn fans on, and hang the meat. And so we had just moved here, hung the meat in my shop, turned fans on it. And like within a day or two, it turned black.
Leather.
Dude, black.
Yeah.
Like black.
That's the low humidity.
Really?
So like I didn't know why. We age in our shop. It's going to be 34 to 36 degrees and 80 to 90% humidity. That's what our cooler setup is.
Super high.
What's our humidity here? Do you know?
I have no idea, but
probably 40,
I assume
30,
it's
40?
It's no higher than 50%. I would assume.
So the higher humidity.
But the hide, that's why they want you to leave the hide on it.
Yeah.
I would assume.
That would help protect against drying it out if you left the hide on.
Interesting. I always thought it was funny, these, I don't know, beating around the bush here because I don't want to get into too much trouble. People who want to dry as their meat, I feel like there's such a huge loss.
It is a trade-off.
You get the flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've done.
That seems like
you don't think there's any difference, do you?
No, it's not that I think there's any difference, but when people talk about
Bon appetit, dry aged meat, it's just kind of frou-frou.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Like it's like you're gonna go for taste, but you're gonna waste this animal. People get so up in arms about
trim loss from the outside of the or from evaporation loss.
Trim loss.
That won't happen if you have the right environment.
Yeah. With high humidity, like there won't. Like Seth killed a buck. I don't know how many years ago that was. But
17. Yeah.
17 years ago or in 2017?
No, 2017. 2017.
We may have killed
3 years
17 years ago. So Cody and I were talking about this walking up and down the mountain about different, eating experiences with, domestic versus wild game, things like that. Go to a restaurant, have a steak, whatever. And I was like, man, I was trying to recall, I mean, kids have shot deer, and it's just obviously you connect with it, and we're eating Ben's deer or whatever, Brady's deer. So, but in this particular event, the first thing came to my mind was this porterhouse chop that Seth cut out of this whitetail buck that he killed. It was rut.
6-year-old buck.
What's a porterhouse chop on a deer?
I'm glad you asked. So we're like, okay, so we're always making like, boneless. So this again, like out west, like everything's probably boneless because you're just not going to carry bone out of the mountains or whatever.
Yeah, that's silly.
Yeah. So anyway, he had killed this 6-year-old buck. Was rut during rut?
Pre-rut, right before.
Pre-rut. So the buck's going to be like, he's swelled up and like, it's game on. So anyway, he's like, when he's cutting this deer, because we're using a bandsaw and stuff like that in the shop, he's like, I'm going to cut like chops, like, like you would get like, veal chops or whatever. Like I'm just going to like, normally you split the deer like down the back and then you strip the back strap out. So it's all boneless and everything like that. You have the inner loin, that, fish tenders, we call them, whatever.
So not to interrupt, this deer weighed 195 pounds. The carcass, just the carcass.
Yeah. Like big old neck,
Yeah,
like the whole, like
195
he's just like, he just riled up.
9 days dry aged.
So we hung it in the cooler 9 days. And you talk about like the trade-off or whatever. So no trim loss, like and maybe some evaporation loss. We've done this with like domestic carcasses. Like we just did this. We had like a 390-pound half of a steer, and like he lost 17 pounds. So it was like whatever the percentage was. That was 6%, whatever the math was. It was 6% or something like that.
Yeah.
So you have some evaporation loss, minimal. But anyway, he cut these porterhouse chops. And he gave me some or whatever, and like I grilled them. It was like warmer out or whatever, and they were like one of the best things I've ever eaten. Like just like I remember messaging, like I took pictures on my phone and stuff like that. But it was just like it was it. Here we go again. We always say incredible eating experience. Or whatever, but it was like for a buck, like in our circumstances, like it's normally like okay, I shot a 190-pound carcass weight buck. I got to put the whole thing into sticks or Smokies or what,
just
whatever,
to be able to eat it.
Just to be able to eat it. So, wife's not going to eat it, kid's not going to eat it, whatever like that. I attribute that to dry aging process.
Really?
I do. Yeah.
So you would recommend dry age process on wild game?
Yeah.
Under the right conditions.
Well, that's the hard part is if you don't have a walk-in cooler.
Yeah.
So you can build one.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
I
Some
need to build
2x4s, insulation, cool bot. You could
Is that the thing on Amazon where you can get like the AC unit that's like hijacked?
Yep.
Essentially.
I think every person that hunts wild game should have their own way to store it and dry age it.
I would agree with that. Like in Oregon, I had buddies with coolers.
Mm-hmm. It's a game changer.
And no one in Montana has them. Mainly because they just leave them on the flatbed out in the...
Yeah, and then take them to the local processor.
Yeah.
I mean, to think about like going through the experiences that we went through, and that way you've achieved the goal, you've got the meat, and then to
how hard it is to get to that point.
So how hard it is to like to get the carrot essentially, and then like once you have it, just be like, okay, well now I'm going to I'm going to take a downturn in my effort. In the sense of just I'm going to pass it off, and not that whatever, but like. There. You should. It's almost like you should see it through.
I would agree, and like I process all my own meat. I do all my own sausages and all that, and I take great pride.
And they're fantastic.
I take great pride in those, and in the fact that it's like I like to know that it went, whatever field to plate, whatever you want to call it. It from like, oh look, hey, try this, and like.
And maybe
speaking of that, Cody, I'm not BSing you here. The bear burgers.
Oh man.
Let's talk about the bear burgers on the mountain.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bear burgers on the
best burgers of my life. Let's talk about the rolled oats.
It was a cook, so.
Because it was thanks. So let's talk about the rolled oats.
Okay,
that's all new. That's new to us.
Okay, let's circle back a touch for everyone who wasn't there. So I just threw in some bear burgers. So we had a bunch of backpacking food and whatnot. I was like, let's throw in some Costco dogs and some burgers, and so I told Kels to my wife to grab some meat out of the freezer before we picked you guys up. Mark and I are getting stuff ready, and Kelsey, I think I grabbed 2 things of burger out of the freezer, and it happened to be elk burger and bear burger. Somehow we got one of each, because I think I was like, oh, this one, and then I was like, going to grab a 1 pound, and I grabbed a smaller one. Long and short of it, we had these like random elk/bear burgers.
They were
and
so.
We put them on the mountain.
They were
and
awesome.
I think we.
Wow.
I accept the compliment and thank you for that, but I also think that we ran you through the ringer and you were deprived of all other things because
let's throw this shoe up here. This is fantastic.
Yeah, if I give you a leather shoe after that hike, you would have been like, "This is the best leather shoe I've ever had."
Well, just as that token,
go ahead.
we ate bear burgers again at your house.
We did have
They were
bear
just
burgers.
as good.
Still fantastic.
Yeah.
So
not to discredit your meals though. Your backcountry fuel meals
But
are
everything-
amazing.
everything
too.
tastes-
Ate 3 in one
You
night.
ate 3 last night.
Yeah, I did.
we should talk a little bit about that, but like everything tastes better, yes, when you've hiked all day,
We
and
hiked
you're
all day.
cold or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So all the BS we talk about dry aging, all that stuff, just do whatever you did with the bear. Just keep doing that.
So well, it was funny because I would be curious, like how many people do rolled oats. I have done I think my mom did. I don't know. I'm sure
I
my
thought they were
grandma
fat
did it.
chunks. And I was like, man, I, didn't
I
grab
did
this
too,
very
yeah.
well. I was like, whatever.
I thought it was
we'll
bear.
deal with
I thought it was bear
At
poop.
this point,
I was good with it.
I was not asking questions.
No.
I was just like,
Yeah.
we're rolling.
That bear has. I pull all my bear fat off. Like the key to bear is pulling the bear fat
For
off.
sure.
Yeah.
It'll ruin your meat faster, but then I re-add pork fat back in.
Mm.
So it's. I mean, that's not that uncommon.
No.
Same thing with deer.
Yeah.
Well, they
Yeah.
just don't have the fat.
Yeah.
You wouldn't take deer fat off, but essentially it doesn't have.
Unless
a
you're in
lot.
the Midwest and they eat a lot of corn. We
Oh,
get a lot.
really?
Yeah, we get a lot of back
Yeah,
fat
we
on deer.
typically remove most or all.
Oh,
of it.
really?
Yeah. Lots of
Interesting.
back fat
For the
on
same
deer.
reason, it can get it gamed up. If
Yep.
you don't.
It'll leave like a waxy
Yeah.
texture
Yeah.
to your
That grain-fed.
mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So anyway, I put oats in it. Usually I run my burger pretty lean anyway, and so I just do like some rolled oats as a binder, rolled oats and eggs. And Scott's like, "What is this?"
Are there oats in these
Yeah.
burgers?
I was like, "Yeah, you've never heard of that?"
That's the first thing I'm gonna do when I get home. I'm gonna mix rolled oats and some
They're
ground
not gonna
bites.
be
I think it's a
They're
wild
not gonna
game
be
thing
forever.
because
Yeah.
wild game is leaner, doesn't hold together as well. So I've always just used oats
Yeah.
because I don't make a lot of regular hamburgers. But
Love
And,
it.
they were good.
and again, Cody, I mean, you have to think about geographically different.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we carried over some stuff from that you never seen before too.
Yeah.
Like, so I mean, that's all. So and back to the meat thing, like hunting shows. I think a lot of times, like it's like okay, everything was just leading up to taking that shot, and then you get the animal and like you get your pictures and stuff like that, and then it's like boom, it's over.
yeah,
So like yeah, it is nice to see or even talk about like just like the follow through,
yeah,
if you will, because yeah, I mean those and then in this case we're not going to be able to experience this, but like even if when you are going through the summer or whatever, like you're just like, man, I remember everything about this trip as I'm eating this meat and stuff.
You know
like
what's
that.
funny is you guys always ask me, "What's the story?"
We have been, yeah. I want to know, like,
I always thought that was funny
because
because like
this bear,
yeah, and like when we were eating it, you're like, "Oh, what's the story?" And then when we walked in the house, and you're like,
Well,
"Saw that."
you mentioned it, Cody, when we're still on the mountain, you and Mark, and you're like, man, maybe it's good for us, like with these guys to like, because we take it for granted.
Yeah.
And like that's where you talk about like elk hunting and things like that. Like, I know you're trying to like bring the barrier down, like just lower the bar, and you did that for us, but like this type of experience is. It's on a grand scale for us. Like I know this is commonplace for you guys because like you do this
Day in and day out.
every year, and like it's like I'm on day 80 of 120 and things like that. Like, but that's just like I mean in the analogy I would have is like that's like a professional athlete versus like somebody that aspires to like
Yeah.
be
You
that.
get a sample in it. No, and Mark and I talked about that. We were on the mountain, and Mark and I both spent a lot of days. I mean, basically since August 28th, I've been elk hunting. And it was funny, I was telling Seth today, we saw some mule deer. I was like, I think I'm ready to go mule deer hunting. It's
Yeah.
like, I've been elk hunting for the last 2.5 months or two months solid. And it was so cool to be out there and see the world through your eyes. And
Yeah,
it's
like
one-
taking your kid hunting.
Yeah, it's like I didn't want to put it there.
We've used this analogy before. It's like having your kids out here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like. Yeah.
But it was, and it was like, and it's funny how you can, even a view, right? Like the place
Right.
you live, and someone comes to your house like, this view is so amazing. You're like, oh, really? I didn't notice. And to some degree, hunting can become that. Is like, I get so focused on the carrot that I forget to look at the scenery around
Sure.
the carrot. And that's always, it seems to be the case is like, I'm like so worried about you guys getting that carrot that I'm like, I forget that the encompassing, just the mountains, big giant mountain, and like
absolutely.
the jokes and
And
the
for us,
foo
like,
bars.
yeah,
and
At one point,
Oh
Cody, I
my
sat there and I
gosh.
told these guys, I was like, just stop, and
Yeah.
look at the scenery, and just take it all in.
yeah.
it's breathtaking.
This was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But when we would get to the top of a ridge or a mountain, the giant mountain, and just look and glass, like that made it worth it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The first time you went up, Spencer, Big Giant Mountain, like you're like, oh god, we're going up that.
I mean, I wasn't too worried because I didn't know what was coming.
What about the second time?
Second time, I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I think Spencer tried to cop out of Big Giant Mountain twice on the second time, and he's like, I'll go with Scott.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Scott.
I caught him.
And then he ended up
Scott's
in the
not
same
going to go up
place.
that mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hey,
Yeah.
there's Spencer, Mark, and Scott on top of Giant Mountain.
Yeah. But, I mean, you guys made it up there, too, anyway. So,
Yeah.
either way, I would have gone up.
Yeah, we're like right next to you guys.
Yeah.
It was a blast. You guys
It
I had
was.
so
It
much
was
fun.
awesome.
What was your biggest takeaway? I want to individually.
Boy, I think for me, it's going to change just the way I go through life. Just thinking about like, I don't know, just slowing things down, and the way you guys approach things, I admire.
What do you mean by that?
Just, it's almost like it's not that time doesn't matter, but it's like if it takes till 3 or 4 in the morning, oh well,
Yeah,
tomorrow's a new day.
yeah,
And for us, we're so programmed that it's like we can't do that because we've got yada 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 to do.
constraints.
Yeah,
Well, society puts restraints on us, and routine puts restraints on us.
Yeah.
And I do feel like hunting is a great way to like step out of those.
yeah. So I do feel like, for me personally, and I know Scott's the same way, but like for us to have, and this is another big thing, Cody, because I know you have a very supportive wife. We do too, because we talk about the gear and we talk about all that stuff. But if you're in a relationship and you don't have a spouse that supports you in what you love, then you can't enjoy it to the level we did.
Yeah,
Because we had tons of support coming into this.
yeah,
Like to the point where it's
sure.
like, you guys need to go. Like,
Yeah.
go do this. Pushing us to go do it. So we didn't have that nagging, like, no, you don't do this. So
the guilt. While
the
you're
guilt.
there is
Right,
hard
right.
to
For
do.
sure.
Yeah, so that was huge for me.
Yeah, so for me, like the experience was like, so I talked about the elk being the carrot, and but it's okay, like so as the when we were in the as you're in the event, like you're gonna have sucking wind and things like that, like going on, but there's always the anticipation, like is there gonna be an elk around the next corner or things like that. So like. That definitely keeps you going, keeps you motivated. But what I gleaned from this trip is like when you step outside your box, and like you, Cody, you want to make it clear that like it can be done. It's not an unattainable. So we did the hunt like in its full capacity.
Yeah,
Like hunted hard, I would say. The issue was that the bulls weren't there.
Yeah.
Like, and that had a lot to do with weather.
However, Cody did put us in opportunities.
Yes.
Which
Oh, yeah.
I actually got a shot. We don't really know what happened. Maybe brush got in the way.
yeah,
That's what we're going to call it.
yeah.
But Cody definitely put us in position.
For sure. And Mark put us in a position on that herd, but it just
There just wasn't a lot of bulls.
And it's a weather thing, like
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you have the so to take away from this experience and say, well, I didn't get the hunt. I mean, you got the hunt. Like
Yeah,
we got
absolutely.
the hunt.
Yeah.
We didn't get blood on our hands.
We just
but
didn't get the
like
kill.
that could be for another time.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too. Like you start to think about it. It's like, so much was learned. They probably didn't even realize it. Like I even noticed as the week wore on, like I said, like the sleep system gets better, the pack system gets better, the lung capacity improves, the legs are going down. Like
Legs go downhill.
yeah, legs go downhill. But like yeah, so like and Mark and I talked about this with Mark, like, he said his first elk hunt, like he got a shot at cow.
Yeah,
And like and he has great stories. I would highly recommend, and he does like, because if you go on his Yellowstone, because he does the Yellowstone pack trips in the summer with his llamas, you're gonna get the
full
stories.
experience of
Yeah,
it.
it's like
Yeah.
I highly recommend Tree Line Pursuits. Check them out. Like,
Oh, Mark's been on the podcast multiple
okay,
times.
but anyway, listen to Mark. But like he said, he came out here, he shot a cow. Next year, he came out and hunted, didn't get anything, and then he got a bull his third year. So like there's
it's like steps.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
If we would have been in a draw unit where we could have shot cows,
Oh,
every
geez.
single one of us would have shot
Oh
a cow.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it's not that we didn't,
that's a great point, Seth.
Right.
I mean, like
we had
you're-
plenty of opportunities,
Yeah.
just not at bulls.
Yeah.
right. So yeah, from my experience, it's like
Well, Seth passed a bull one time.
I did.
We won't talk about that.
I wouldn't have done that.
It's on video if you want to see it.
I was just waiting for Cody to say, "Shoot that bull."
No. Okay. I don't want to interrupt Scott.
Okay,
Keep
sorry.
going.
Well, that's pretty much the synopsis of it. I mean, great hunt.
Yeah.
It was truly a hunt. I mean, I think the definition of a hunt is the chase.
Yeah.
Not
It was a
de-
great adventure.
Yeah, not defined by the the singular outcome of I have to take. I know that's the objective, that's the goal, but like if you get so focused on that, like the journey, you lost the journey in the sense. So like for me, like that was.
Could I be completely honest with you?
What?
I didn't want to shoot a small bull.
Oh. Well, I mean, there's that. I get, and so this goes back to the whole thing of me being like,
I've
here's
passed
what.
so many whitetails.
Yeah.
Waiting for them to be bigger next year.
Yeah.
It was just that split-second decision where it was like, I'd rather shoot a bigger bull.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I regret
get
it. I should have shot him.
That's
we-
because you
Do
don't
you
have. you
Because
don't
we'd have had
have-
meat.
Ah. Spencer, what's your biggest takeaway?
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm not much of a hunter. And this is the first hunt I've ever filmed. The filming I'm used to doing is for the YouTube channel. And when we're filming those videos, they can get out of control, quote unquote, with distractions and stuff. But when it comes to this kind of run and gun, you have to make sure that you are recording and all your settings are right and your exposure is correct, your audio is going. Mm-hmm. It really made me appreciate all the other camera people for other hunting shows.
Yeah.
And that's my one thing, but my biggest thing from this trip was and this kind of goes with Seth's thing having, backing, but just the mental health that you have to have and the mental capacity that you have to have, because that was the toughest part for me for the whole trip. Especially that first night after, going through
Spencer, I gotta give it to
Spencer
Spencer.
lost
He
his cookies.
kicked
I told him, I
some
was like,
serious butt.
On the way back, we could see the truck and trailer, and I was like, Spencer, I'm proud of you. It's like I was thinking back to that first moment when it was like, he could have checked out right then because he's
Can't
like,
hit
lost
go home.
lost my cook. I mean, it couldn't have got for him, but
Yeah.
go on.
He's 19. I mean, that was intense.
Yeah.
And when we left, our brother Sean, our older brother, who's Spencer's dad, said, "Please take care of him. He's my only son." So it's like I thought of that the whole time, but he kicked butt.
Well, see, as I was going through that, as I was puking my guts out, I was thinking if I get through this day, I'm pretty sure the rest of the week is going to go fine.
Yeah.
And
Was that true or false?
no,
But then you climb Giant Mountain twice after that.
which we didn't bring up the going down Giant Mountain in the dark.
So Cody,
So hold on.
enlighten us, please.
Okay, so we're gonna end this podcast with a true this is for all my elk hunting people that listen to this podcast. You're gonna enjoy this because I did drag them through every piece of a good elk hunt, minus the pack out, but I did get the cliche shortcut.
Yeah.
I got the cliche there's no good way to go the way we came. It's not an option to go the way we came.
Let's just go over the mountain.
And I'm like,
Straight
man,
down to camp.
Camp straight down. I knew how this was gonna go. I've been there more times
let's
than I
talk
can
about
count.
the fact we were in grizzly country.
Oh, we're in Grizz
Yeah.
country. It is
Yeah.
very much dark. It's very much past dark. It is not far as a crow would fly to camp, but it is straight down
All deadfall.
through deadfall, through
Snow.
timber,
Yeah.
through snow and timber and deadfall, through holes, through rock slides, everything. And I was like, a part of me was like, I could go back to the ridge, but I just don't feel like it's not what I would do. Like I knew exactly what we were getting ourselves into. I'm like, well, it's a part of elk hunting. These boys are kidding.
There was no way I was letting Cody Rich down. It's like, I'm doing it. We're behind you.
Oh, we fell.
Yeah, we fell.
We broke
yeah.
limbs.
Yep.
We did everything. I think.
Well, everybody came out of this though better than, I mean, at least for me, like better than when I went in.
Yeah. Same
Yeah.
here.
Like,
And this is one thing I was, and Seth and I talked about this, not to interrupt, but we talked about this a little bit, is how entrepreneurs, it's easy to get singular focus
For
on
sure.
like goals and these certain achievements and all these things. And hunting for me has always been this, it's not even an escape. It's just like this alternate route
Yeah.
of clarity. And,
Absolutely.
And I really think like driven people, and you're seeing this more and more, driven people are getting into archery hunting and hunting in general, but I don't know that it matters whether it's archery or rifle, but I do feel like these adventures are really, really good clarity for very driven entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Would you agree?
I
Yeah.
would 100% agree.
So
And then-
the prize may not even be coming off the mountain with an elk.
Yeah.
It could
Right.
it could be the conversation
not-
we had about entrepreneurship.
Oh, that's
yeah.
the thing.
Yeah, we're
like,
gonna glean from each other and learn something that
Totally.
Who knows?
absolutely.
In a place where, okay, so here's a great example. Like the three of us, yeah, we've, met at an event and BS about entrepreneurship, but how well do we know each other through this experience versus
Yeah.
the previous experience? And how much do we sit here and talk about business and ideas and direction and like, man, just getting, and this is how Mark and I became friends. Like,
Yeah.
and I have told you guys before, I was like, man, Mark and I have stayed up some late nights just BSing about business and ideas and direction and these things. And like being on the mountain, to me, gives like this certain clarity, and I
What
see
strips
that.
everything else away.
Yeah, take everything
No
away. There's
distractions.
no
Yeah.
distractions.
Yeah.
So it's just it's an adventure meets retreat. As cheesy as
sure.
that sounds.
I'm
I
excited about the future. I
Yeah?
am. Yeah.
Good.
I mean, so much could come out of this.
Well, see, here's another thing
Lifelong
that.
friendship,
A bear hunt.
a bear hunt,
Yeah.
bear burgers. Can't
Bear
stop
burgers.
thinking about those.
Yeah, those were awesome.
We could
Yeah.
bring you to Ohio and drag you around as hard as we could, but it wouldn't be anything like it.
Yeah.
Would just tie you to the truck maybe and make you run. But like that's the closest.
I'll only do 40 miles an hour and make you run behind the
We
truck.
couldn't put you through, the same. And the thing, and so so if you talk about, Spencer mentioned the mental capacity, and I think that's great or whatever like that. But there was no pain involved.
No.
Like there was a bit of discomfort just in the sense of just the breathing and like the trekking and things like that. But I think that was the one thing, like even with you guys, like anything can happen, and obviously still a hunt versus whatever. But like there was a comfort level in the sense that like you guys were there and like you knew what was going on.
It was just like having
whatever.
your instructor in
Yeah.
your airplane with you.
Yeah, we never got into any pain in the sense of
No.
like nobody rolled an ankle or fell off a
Well,
cliff
that
or
was
anything
even
like
like
that. So like I'm thankful for very much for that. But,
being
like,
in
Yeah.
grizzly country.
But
Just having one of you
it-
guys with us.
right,
Yeah.
it is, and you talk about business and things like that. Like it's good to break out of your comfort level because and I think hunting is a great way to do that because whether you do have a pack out or something like that, it's like you have to push myself further than. I found that happening every day when we left camp.
Especially when the night before you said tomorrow's actually going to be worse than
Mark
today.
says we're going to be walking by 5:30.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So I was just thankful that there's so many different aspects of it that the hunt is all encompassing in the fact that all the levels that come into it, who you're with, you learn a lot about the people. You strip all the distractions away, things like that, and you learn about yourself through the experience. And I think the upper echelon or the upper levels of this are when you do stuff like you and Mark do, where you go full solo. And that's kind of like the next level stuff.
There's a certain level of like fear, independence, and like having to rely on yourself. Like even me going with Mark, for example, is like the same way you guys feel like you have an instructor. I feel like I have a co-instructor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when
Right.
it's solo, it's all you.
Yeah.
It's all you.
The
Buddy.
one thing I want to do with this trip was it's like, okay, you have to know that you're gonna be self-supporting in the sense of I'm gonna carry my own way in and out of here. Whatever.
Yeah.
I know we have llamas, whatever. But the other was how can I contribute? what can I put into this and all that stuff. So, yeah, like I said, I feel like myself, we learned a lot about each other. And we learned we were more similar in ways that we didn't know. Yeah. But you also, you just come out better than when you started in.
Oh,
yeah.
Physically and mentally.
And another thing that you can take away from this, and I mentioned this to both Seth and Scott, even though we didn't get an elk, we have the content. And maybe that's the cameraman coming out of me. But, and obviously for the people listening to this, unless you're filming it, you won't get the same, takeaway. But the content that we got, just having that video that you guys can look back and watch with your boys when they're 18.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just think of how much is that worth?
I think as a hunter, if you've been hunting long enough, you understand that it's not always killing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, this isn't my last trip to Montana.
Oh yeah, you're already looking at realestate.com.
Right. So this is just the beginning. This was a hunt, and I plan on getting that elk someday.
I'm sure
Absolutely.
You will. I'm sure you will. So for those who don't know, we never even mentioned this, but go check out the Bearded Butcher's YouTube channel, the blends. You guys just see, maybe that's what made the bear burgers, maybe secretly.
May contributed.
It is. Still, it was the crossover was the mountain and at your house. So they both had the Bearded Butcher black on them. So.
What's the best way to follow you guys? I'm going to recommend so the funny thing is, back when we first met, and you guys, I didn't know who you were, in full disclosure. And I go back to the hotel room, and I pull up this video that Seth told me about, and 35 or 40 minutes later, I'm like, wow, I got sucked into that video. Real
the
deep.
vortex caught you.
It was midnight, and I'm like, whoa, I got sucked in.
So there's multiple ways to follow us. The YouTube channel, it's kind of a little bit artistry meets craftsmanship, and then you get to hear us talking the whole time. So whether or not you but people will talk about how watching Seth cut meat. I try to bring in some of the science stuff on just the science of meat and aging,
the
things
grass
like that.
fed versus
grass fed versus grain fed, whatever. And then obviously Spencer's incredible at our video and editing, and even he draws in some cinematic stuff, and it just makes it really fun to watch. So. You go to Bearded Butchers on YouTube. You can watch a bunch of different, and a lot of them are how-to, but they're also geared up in a way so you can just use them for entertainment too.
Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure we're going to hit 500,000 subscribers this weekend.
Yeah,
while we're in Montana. So
that's mind-blowing.
If you want the blends, beardedbutchers.com. You can get all of our seasoning blends, our sauces, the knives we use, some apparel. Those camper mugs that I used on the mountain.
Yes.
Those.
Yes.
You can get those there. But anyway, and then obviously if you want daily content and things like that, you can follow us on Instagram. We run stories and stuff like that. It's just kind of
Let's not forget TikTok.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's really proud of TikTok. He's got TikTok.
I saw you, Scott. I saw you dancing on TikTok.
Yeah. He makes me do all that stuff.
Gun to your head, I'm sure.
So
that's a new one for us.
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that stuff. It's just it's more or less about us going through the process of delivering, the meat that we do to. And then
listen, we have a smartphone.
Blend.
We're gonna put it on video, point at our face.
Yeah.
And put it out there. So
okay, full disclosure, we're gonna do an entire entrepreneur podcast. So for all you listeners, Seth and Scott and I hit it off really well. Very similar backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Some dumb redneck farm kids that somehow got into business.
Somehow we're here.
Yeah. And we're going to do an entire podcast on entrepreneurship and a lot of the stuff we talked about this week and all that. So I feel like my channel would love to hear some of the how you made it and all that. So we're going to do another one for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So just for clarification, I want to dive into that stuff later, but
let's do it.
Yeah. Go check out their YouTube channel. That's a good place to start. That's where I got sucked in.
For sure.
And then it was TikTok and Scott dancing. And,
absolutely.
So let's talk about this too. When I met Cody in Missouri, it's and then we made the connection. He invited us out here. I never had a doubt that he wasn't the guy to go with.
Exactly.
Because we hit it off so well. It was just full steam ahead. Cody Rich, let's go.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I invited you. I'm
I
like,
felt
hey,
like
we
I-
should do an elk hunt someday. And they're like,
Yeah.
hey, we put in and we drew. We're coming. We're going to be at your house this day. And I'm like,
Yeah, exactly.
oh, okay.
we're bringing a cameraman. It's going on YouTube.
I said that in passing as we went to the airport.
I'm sending him flight numbers and everything like that.
Oh, by the way,
Oh, no, it's been good. It was an epic week, guys. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you very much for the
Yeah.
hospitality.
Yeah, for
also,
sure.
Mark for going along and
Thank
Yeah,
you,
thank
you,
God.
Mark, for saving me when I was puking.
Yeah,
couldn't have done
Saving
it without
Spencer's
you
life.
guys.
Uh,
I mean, true Western. I mean, I just loved every second.
Yeah.
it was fun.
Yeah,
It was a good week, guys.
Admire you guys. Look up to you. It's truly an inspiration, big time.
All right. Wow. Let's see some changes.
Yeah,
Maybe or not.
100 days a year.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
Yeah, when you're 55, climbing big giant mountains.
Oh,
That's
my
crazy.
goodness, Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, guys.
incredible.
Thank you
Cool.
for jumping on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Cody.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
us.
it all.